non-alcoholic and alcohol-free beers, it's projected to be a $40 billion category by 2032.
Wow.
So that's really, in the United States, that's insane.
Wow.
That's double the size of craft.
Yeah.
I think there's people out there that are going to question that number and try to poke holes in it.
40 billion.
I'm like, double the size
well,
of craft.
let's see what happens.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, it definitely can, because there's more occasions to drink NA beer. And I think we have an argument for that as well. So yeah, it's going to be a really cool ride. I'm thrilled to be part of a team that every day we are just going. It's like my hair is blown back every day by the growth here.
Hi, Meagen. It's so good to see you. Thanks for joining us today on Recipe to Revenue. How are you?
I'm so good, Leah. Thanks for the time today. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks. So yes, we have lots of fun things to talk about today, and I'm so excited I'm going to be able to show some of your product on air. We're going to go through and talk about your different, you've just had such an interesting career journey. And I want more people to hear your story and all the companies you've worked for and the product lines that you've developed in terms of training. Just so much good conversation to be had. So just let's start with a little bit about your background and tell us how you kind of got into this space and kind of landed here today.
Yeah, thanks. It's been, like you said, I think to tell the whole story, we would take many podcasts, but it's always one of those things where I sit and really think about, the point I want to get across to my audiences, because my life has been such a dynamic, fast-paced, fast-moving journey with, lots of ups and downs, but the truth is this is the best it's ever been. So I'm excited to share that today. So
that's incredible.
Thank you. So my background, I'm from the Midwest originally. I got a degree in political science, really didn't know what I wanted to do, thought I might work in politics, and then ended up in consumer packaged goods and sales, which I'm guessing with the influencing that we do on a daily basis, there was a definite match there. So I worked actually in the tobacco space for a few years for a major brand for Philip Morris USA. Got a lot of sales training there. So I really understood now how to leverage my strengths. That didn't stay very long. I stayed there about 2 years and then moved to Texas actually and did a few other things and ended up at Samuel Adams. So I spent really the best part of my career learning from the best people in the beverage industry at the Boston Beer Company. Jim Cook, he's got many books and many podcasts of his own to hear his story, but I truly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the folks inside of Boston Beer that really, they are just such nurturing people. It's an amazing team. I think one of the reasons I ended up being inspired to build a training program was really because I worked for the best training program in the country. So I ended up at Boston Beer focused on beer education after 8 years doing other types of sales roles while the craft beer was exploding. And that was really amazing. I learned a lot. I ended up there in the beer education team training over 8,000 people and building a team. So we were training wholesalers and retailers around the country to have a lot of knowledge in beer. And I was able
Was that program really built out when you arrived at that point?
No, I helped build that. So that was kind of what I was tasked with, is Meagen, build the most credible beer education team in the United States. Go. So, for me, that was always get out and see and touch as many folks as you can. So I really burned up the road. I was fortunate enough to be able to add a few more folks. And it's cool because now I look around and a lot of breweries have a beer education team. And I feel like at Boston Beer,
I might have had a little something to do with this.
I think we helped set the industry standard for quality in that area. And I think it was all about how you present, not just what you present, but, to be engaging. It was ways we did that. And then on the other side of this story was, while I was having a great time and learning and having a lot of fun, personally, I really struggled with moderating my alcohol consumption, just managing it in my life, I worked there 10 years. I was in beer ed, so we were drinking beer every day.
Surrounded by it every day.
So that was very difficult for me to manage as I got, more developed in life and started a family. And I just didn't feel mentally and physically as happy as I should have been, all things considered. Like I really have been so blessed and had so many great opportunities. And so I decided to, after many times of just trying to moderate, like, oh, I'm only going to drink one night a week, that would always
Mm-hmm.
fail. I would end up, drinking beer every day again. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I just need to substitute instead of
Yeah.
regular, alcoholic beer. What if I tried substituting non-alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic
Right.
beverages? So I did a program. I looked at substitution. I jumped right in and all of a sudden realized there actually
Mm-hmm.
was quite a few NA beers coming into the market. This was about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was all in. I was just authentically committed to this idea of transformation, and part of
Mm-hmm.
that was transforming my beverage choices because I love beer. One of the reasons I think I wasn't successful is because I love it so much and I missed it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everything else paled in comparison to my life when I was able to drink beer. And then as I
Mm-hmm.
discovered all these amazing NAs, I really was like, okay, this information has to be shared. It's something
Right.
I can use as my comeback story, if you will, because my
Oh,
transformation
absolutely.
wasn't small. There was a
Mm-hmm.
major kind of breakthrough for me in terms of like this could be holding me back physically
Mm-hmm.
and mentally, and I started to see some of the
Yeah.
benefits of that the longer I went. And I had never been able to experience that before. So I was super grateful for that and wanted to share
Yeah.
that, but also wanted to share information on NA beer because I was a beer educator and I was like,
Right.
I'm gonna need a job and I'm gonna need to be able
Yeah.
to contribute in this space. And it didn't feel authentic to go back and sell alcoholic beer again. I
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
like,
After
as
what
I
you've been
looked
through.
at getting back into the industry, I did my master's degree in business,
Mm-hmm.
did some consulting to pick up more experience. I worked in the hops industry. I started
Mm-hmm.
developing beers and things of that nature. And so after gaining all this amazing experience, it's really then ends as a faith-based journey,
Yeah.
which is where I still am.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt
Mm-hmm.
like I, in faith, was, asked to create something that could be the industry equivalent to Cicerone
Yeah.
or the sommelier program for AF and NA. And that was not my
Yeah.
idea. I prayed about that for a long time. And when that
Mm-hmm.
idea came to me, I thought, well, who am I to say no? I'm here making it this far. So I stepped
Right.
forward in that. And I wrote the world's first book on non-alcoholic beer last year and released the
Mm-hmm.
AFNA AFNA, we call it, beer certified program, which is like a level 1 program. And then this
Mm-hmm.
year we also released the world's first cannabis beverage certification for hemp derived and marijuana derived beverages. So we've got 2
Incredible.
products now. The company's called Aficionado Training Program. So the AF and
Mm-hmm.
NA, the AFNA kind of stack. That was an
Yep.
accident. But
That's a very happy accident, though.
where it went. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where I landed. And then
Mm-hmm.
after, really getting the product established in the market, I was ready to go back and serve a brewery. And I thought
Yeah.
the time might be right. 2 years had passed. The category had
Sure.
doubled in size several
Yeah.
times. And
And matured since then.
yeah, super, super blessed to have the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery right in my backyard, Go Brewing in Naperville,
Perfect.
Illinois. And Matt Stanky and Joe Chura are 2 of the greatest and had built this just
Mm-hmm.
incredible team around them, unlike any
Yeah.
team I've worked with since Boston Beer. And the product was just absolutely outstanding and encapsulated everything quality and
Mm-hmm.
from a brand perspective, authentic, that I had learned during my own journey building this. So I ended up there. I'm actually running on premise and
Mm-hmm.
training for them for the US, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We'll be in
So that's a
20.
pretty recent, evolution in your journey now.
Yeah,
Right.
just been there just about 2 months now. So it's really,
Yeah.
really new. But
Congratulations.
we're
Yeah.
just growing so fast. It's just so
Mm-hmm.
incredible to see us breaking into these new spaces. And for me personally, that Go Brewing has dedicated a resource to getting into the on-premise, because we know on-premise
Mm-hmm.
drives off-premise trial, and we've just had great growth there. So my hope
Yeah.
is to get non-alcoholic beer prominent on menus, because
Mm.
then eventually the training component catches up to that. Once the category is big enough and valid enough, which we
Right. That makes
see
sense.
will be double the size of craft by 2032. I mean, that's a big number. That's
Wow.
growing by $40 billion. So
Mm-hmm.
we know that training and education will be an important part of that. And I have developed the patience and stamina to have this product and wait as it matures into the industry and just get the early adopters on board now.
Yeah, you're in the right place at the right time. I think I've definitely been starting to see it more on menus lately.
Yes.
So we're starting to see the spread of it. So who do you like? What's been the reaction so far to your aficionado, the launch of it? Outside of your relationship with Go Brewing.
Yeah, so really good, really positive. The first brewery that jumped on board was BrewDog. They have an NA. They have the first actually craft NA, I believe, that was really ever made. James Watt developed that beer kind of as a joke in Scotland, and to make fun of the fact they had made the strongest beer in the world, he made an NA called Nanny
Yeah.
State. And so they had this kind of fun background. They were really focused on NA growth. So 2 years ago, they actually approached me and said, like, we're interested in investing in this. We want to train our whole team and leverage it. So they came in first. And then, interestingly enough, I've had some major chain retailers approach me that in the US, mostly off-premise. Total Wine would be an example. I've worked with HEB in Texas, Whole Foods, and just a bunch of really great folks in the industry have been wonderful. But I think that that's not because of what I built, but because that I included 20 plus industry experts. I think it would be different if I was like, I wrote this on my own. I definitely did not. I credit Dr. Keith Villa from Saria. He invented Blue Moon. And his family, his wife and daughter, have been incredibly helpful. So I'm really, really grateful to Jody and Catherine as well. They encouraged me to trademark these things and help me get it off the ground. Yeah, Jake Kirkendall from Calsec, a great hop scientist. He helped me as well. And then so many editors. Aaron Golston, he was with Anheuser-Busch. He wrote the first brewing and distilling exam for the Institute of Brewing and Distilling. So he wrote my exam.
Fantastic.
And just people that, for essentially an interest in what I'm doing in the company, have given me their time. And and many of them not even for any money or interest, just because they wanted to contribute. And that has been amazing.
Support you.
Yes.
That's incredible. Well, that I think speaks to, well, certainly their belief in what you're doing. And then also their trust in that you are the right person to bring this forward at the right time. But you've given me a great segue to a question I wanted to ask about partnerships and how important partnerships are into making a brand successful. And, you've seen that in your career in different ways. Can you speak to some of those stories that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. It was something that if I could hold the hand of anybody's, questioning starting a business for the first time, I'd say plan out your ideal partnerships first before you even ever. Because
I love that. Yeah.
If you think about it, we always end up, just because we're too ashamed or scared to share our ideas and have people laugh at us, which the best ideas are always laughed at first, right? I mean, I never would have thought
some of the craziest ideas, right? And becoming these amazing businesses.
I never would have thought I would go all in on non-alcoholic beer 10 years ago when I was like, drinking 4 IPAs a day. I never would have thought that. I thought that would be ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is, Keith nudged me and said, we need this, because he'd already been following the trends. And when somebody that I respect that much, Dr. Bill Simpson, who's a global beer sensory expert, would be another person. I feel at Jake Kirkendall, again, at Calsec, people that have had a hand in like real serious technology and advancement in the industry. I really felt like those partnerships, the value in them doesn't always have to be monetary either. That I thought about who I wanted to work with. I called them and I kind of like used them as my Shark Tank. Colin Wilson from TNS would be another example. People that are like way smarter than me and would also tell me the truth.
But did you get any pushback from anybody? They were like, I don't know if you should do this.
Well, not necessarily that, but like even my uncle has run and sold successful businesses and helped me in my startup. My husband as well. I would say they were like great critics. They were like, you definitely need to do this, but you can't give up. And here, this part doesn't make sense. This part doesn't make sense.
You need somebody to poke the holes in it too. So you're not out there.
To tell you positive things, which was part of my learning in, this recent growth was like, I just really was scared of direct feedback because I thought I should know everything. And then when you go to get your MBA, you quickly realize like, oh yeah, there's so much going on in a business. I was so naive,
I mean, that's why like case studies exist, right? Like we have to learn from other people's failures.
Yeah. So I just really kind of walked in like, whatever whatever happens, someone will tell me if I'm going to drive the bus off the road. And I would always ask my advisors, I had some other really amazing internal advisors, Yael Weisberg and Antonio Fatizzi from New York. They have a firm called Cork and Tin, and they really stepped in. They understand brand and they understand
Yeah.
execution. And so when I think about where I invested the little bit of bootstrap money I had, I spent that money on brand strategy, because
Yeah.
we live
Excellent.
in a world where, Joe Chura from Go Brewing says it best, like we're fighting for attention because we're in a digital world, right? So I needed to make sure, like I had a couple brand iterations in the beginning that were internal, and like you could tell they weren't connecting to people. My language wasn't consistent. My website wasn't consistent. Once I had that in place, then partners that I wanted to approach that knew I was good also knew my brand was good. So they were happy to attach their name to it.
They're more ready to endorse it at that point.
Yes, I hired an amazing designer from France, actually. She's worked on a lot of international beverage projects and even done training. And so she understood like what I wanted to build, because I had a great brand strategy team that can convert my ideas into a brief. And that would be kind of my final remark on partnerships. When you do decide someone wants to decide they want to engage with you, be able to write a brief to them. Because if you can explain to people, because everybody has a different idea with words about what the outcome is. This is another thing I've learned about myself, because I'm highly verbal, right? And I'm like, I might get like a static image in my mind and then I'll just go do that. But everybody's envisioning something cool and different and unique. And there might be things in there you need to overcome. But if you don't write it down and you can't organize your thoughts in a
good point.
way, you can't have real discourse, because you're just losing each other. And I had to learn that, because I thought I could just have a zillion Zoom calls and my business would thrive. And the better I got at writing down my ideas, even leaning into technology like ChatGPT to help me write it my way and in my voice, spit back at me in a way that's constructed properly. And working with editors and writing a book and failing at that time and time again and finding mistakes, that was because I had engaged with the right partners that, were a little bit from a monetary perspective were in my budget, or in another way, were able to get interest in something to monetize at a future state because I could articulate the idea.
Yeah. I love all of that advice, so invest in your branding, write it down, and find good partners.
Find good partners, yes. And incredible. It doesn't have to be for money. Yeah, you've got a business, so you've got things you can give. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's go back to the NA category and just tell us a little bit, certainly from your experience and then all these people that you've worked with now, who is the customer today for NA versus, maybe 5 years ago when it just started coming out in the scene?
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. And this information is available. So for everyone listening, the IWSR and Nielsen have done just an incredible job starting to validate and legitimize the category. And I believe she's out on her own now. So a shout out to another entrepreneur, Brandy Rand. She ran the Insights program at IWSR and did a webinar actually for the Adult Non-Alcoholic Beverage Association. So I want to give a shout out to them. Yeah, Anba Marcos is doing a great job over there. I networked a lot into that group and it was very high value because it was all professionals focused on the space. So that information helped feed Aficionado in terms of me knowing being able to place what I would call like my revenue and growth trajectories. Like I was very interested in knowing like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to know what percentage of the market I can capture. Sure. So I started diving into that. So I'll do this in two ways. I'll talk a little about growth, but what I think is really important is for folks listening that are interested in the NA space to understand like who is the consumer, like how are they utilizing NA, because that was really helpful for me in terms of conceptualizing that. So hopefully that will answer some of your questions.
Excellent. Yeah.
But yeah, in essence, the NA category wasn't a category in the U.S. until very recently. If you compare it to other markets, it's very interesting. Low and no alcohol beverage are big in Europe, for example, and the Middle East. The Middle East does for a long time, like over half the global volume of NA and zero, Bud Zero type products and everything. Malt-based beverages are very popular there. So barley-based and malt-based beverages are a thing. And so if you look at that category size and then you look at what happened after World War II, the Germans really invented modern NA beer, but we always had small beer and near beer historically. And beer is one of the 6 most important beverages ever created. There's a book written on that too. So it's a part woven into human history, with alcohol at first playing a really important role in sort of neutralizing the impact of pathogens that could grow in water. So humans would drink that. But as we got into, modern times, we had ways of making our water safe, and we really no longer needed alcohol to have alcohol as a regular part of our diet to prevent transmission of those diseases. So
Yeah.
then you come into modern day, and I'm thinking a lot of it had to do with prohibition, of course. That really threw
Sure.
a big wrench, I think. If you look at the late development of craft beer in the U.S., there was really only one type of beer, which was domestic beer, that was present in the U.S. in this technology revolution, if you will, an industrial revolution. It was Budweiser, it was Miller, it was Pabst, it was Schlitz.
Yeah.
Those types of brands really ruled, especially in I'll be focused on beer here because it's the 86% of the category sales of AF and NA drinks. But you can look adjacent to the others, and that story is there. But for beer in particular,
sure.
If you look in Germany and in Spain, it's 15% of the market. Here it was never even eclipsing 1/10 of 1%, 1/2 of 1%, and the only
that's a big difference.
The only option available to consumers was really in the 80s a mass domestic option called O'Doul's, which was from ABI.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to actually sit down with the guy who invented that beer and have dinner with him.
Oh, really? Did you?
It was a big technology. He was very interested. He knew a ton about the space. He even keeps his name close to the chest because he doesn't want a lot of attention called to him. So I really was grateful for him taking time to sit down with me for a few hours and tell me about his life and how he made this product and what it became. Because there's a lot of secrets that are involved in those types of things, and I think that kind of goes into today, which is what we'll see. But it's really about the consumer. So prohibition didn't really create a consumer that was interested in these products in America. Then we saw a big evolution of craft beverages or beverages coming from smaller makers really after the late 90s in the US. So those kind of things started happening in the 70s and 80s. People that had come back from global deployments had a taste and flavor for craft and other offerings in their beverages. Those guys ended up making these things in a lot of cases. I look at Jack McAuliffe and the two women who started New Albion Brewing in the 70s in San Francisco. They made the first American pale ale ever in the late 70s, which Sierra Nevada ends up building a brewery right down the road. We're very similar to that. So some of these amazing global brands, were inspired by this transformation of ideas and concepts that came from people coming back from Europe. So as that happened, Americans are drinking pretty low point beer considerably, let's say something between 4 and 5% alcohol. But we're never really aware of the impact that alcohol has on our bodies and lifestyles. Really, you fast forward into this transformation movement, which happened around COVID. And so you have a whole nother, when you have a pandemic, both economically and, from really every aspect of society, medically, you're hitting the reset button now. Technology.
On so many things.
So what I'm getting to, Leah, is this created new consumer desires and patterns as people all of a sudden, for the first time, they had tons and tons of choices of alcoholic beverages from all these craft makers. But we didn't have a category for NA because there had never been a consumer demand for that we were that aware of, right?
Yeah.
That emerges after COVID because you have a lot of people, now everyone's online. Many from the literature, many more people were drinking at home. I believe there was a 5.5% increase in alcohol consumption during COVID, mostly by women. A lot of stories about women writing about that. You saw cancer diagnoses and accidents happening. You saw an increase in deaths associated with that. Over 180,000 Americans die per year. That's what we know of related to alcohol consumption. If you look at the cancer connection, it could be higher. What I'm saying is people started to figure this out. They were like,
the dots started to get connected.
Drinking isn't good for me. And maybe they had COVID and were beginning to have those negative reactions. And so they started taking things out of their life. But they were sharing these pictures of themselves. Hey, I'm transformed. Look at me. They were attributing this to this relationship.
So interesting. Yeah.
It was very interesting. So we've got IWSR comes out, let's call it 2 or 3 years ago, with this talk on the NA consumer. And I'm like, right on this thing. I'm like, I want to hear about them. Who are these folks? And so there's really like 4 types of consumer patterns. One would be what we call substituting, and that is the majority of people. That's about 60% of this consumption is happening in a way we call substitution. And so I'll borrow from another great in the space, Andy Ramage. He started a program, co-founded a program called 1 Year No Beer, and then left that and founded a program called Dry, which is basically an app that helps people that want to do a challenge or moderate their alcohol consumption, all inspired by him. And so he kind of frame this up. There's 2 billion people in the world right now that what he calls middle lane drinkers. They drink 5 or 6 nights a week, drinking a few nights during the week and then on the weekends as well. Those are 2 billion consumers that are now searching for alternatives. And so substitution plays a role now. So if you take that number and push it into the US of people that were drinking, full flavored craft wines, or drinking full alcoholic craft beers for many years, that is an aging craft consumer, male and female, that are now looking for new options. And substituting became a really popular method for many people, which is like, you know what? I don't drink during the week anymore. I have my NAs. I will also say I do see a very high correlation between THC legalization, cannabis and hemp legalization, and this growth curve. There is an association there. I won't speak much to it today, but it is something we could talk about another time because they're very closely related, which is why I wrote a cannabis exam.
Yes. See how all these dots are coming together.
It all converges for sure. But that's a big play, is people are substituting. Which is a really important thing I educate on in the on-premise, is like, listen, you've got people that come in here, they drink alcohol, 2/3 of these folks still drink regular alcoholic beverages on the weekends or a few nights a week, but they're looking for a substitution. So you've got a pretty...
they still want it to be part of their day-to-day routine, whether it's winding down at the end of the night or just, getting together with friends, but maybe something that, they worked out earlier that day. They don't want it to kind of like negate, the good effort that they put in earlier in the day, but don't want to miss out on the other lifestyle aspect of it.
You nailed it. That's exactly right. That is like what I hear from a lot of drinkers. Like, I used to, but like I just couldn't handle it, or I'm trying to do. People are now really focused on improvement and performance, and they're more aware. They're also more aware of sleep. They want to sleep good. Alcohol used to help me fall asleep, but then I wouldn't sleep well. And there's other alternatives now for that. And one of them is just substituting for an NA, because what the drinkers tell us at Go Brewing is like, I want a direct substitute. I want my favorite craft flavors, like in a beer, and please deliver that to me. And we've made 38 different styles that I think deliver exactly that. Yeah. And so that's a very interesting and biggest component. If anybody that's listening, you pay attention to substitution, because that's what's happening. You've got people that are still purchasing alcohol, drinking alcohol, but they're just substituting more and more of these occasions. And when you actually look at the growth trajectory of NA beer, typically in beer, when we see volume spikes, we see a volume spike at Super Bowl, we see one at 4th of July, we see one around, Labor Day. We don't see that as much in NA. They come in,
interesting.
Every dry January is bigger, but because they're substituting and staying, that line of growth remains very stable. So it's really, really healthy for my wholesalers and retailers who are seeing really healthy margins on this stuff. Yeah. And everybody is, excited because we're not paying alcohol taxes on these beverages, because the IRC tax code, anything below 0.5.
So that's 2 benefits for them.
Yeah, we can market it as a beer. It is a beer, just a beer below 0.5. So that tax code gives us a lot of leeway there. And we can charge the same price because the consumer perception of substitution is the same. So that's very interesting. So that we've got that. Then we've got another big chunk of folks like me that we call that abstaining. Of course, I call it 100% substitution, because I don't feel like I'm giving up. I'm drinking more beer now than I ever have, because I can start earlier in the day, and it's way healthier to me than an energy drink filled with sugar or a soda, or some of these other things that are out there to drink for carbonated beverages.
Right.
I don't drink diet soda, especially, I think has been, not great choices. So I've basically eliminated these things. And I drink water, coffee, and non-alcoholic beer primarily. And I'm healthier than I've ever been. There's some great studies that the German, during the German Olympics in Munich, they gave the athletes non-alcoholic beer as a recovery drink, and they noted
Oh, wow.
quite a few improvements in their time. This is well documented as well. And so
Yeah.
that was really interesting. And that's like covers about 80% of the group there. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you look at what's happening on the other side, you have just what we call trialers, people that are just like, I'm open to trying anything. I will
Mm-hmm.
try these drinks. 25% of Gen Z doesn't drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this kind of idea of people that are like sort of on the fringe, that alcohol isn't a
Yeah,
right.
you hear the phrase sober curious a lot.
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm sober curious. Like, I definitely am not drinking to get intoxicated. Maybe I have an occasional drink, but I am open to trying new things. And so they're very open to that. And they're very comfortable with cannabis. So I think we're seeing some direct substitution on that side as well. And then you've got this last group of folks that are doing what we call zebra striping. So you're drinking this is very popular in Europe also. What you'll do is you'll drink your regular alcoholic beer, and then you'll zebra stripe or blend in a non-alcoholic beer. And then by doing that, you're essentially creating a low alcohol or low point drinking experience. If you're able to maybe you drink 2 NAs, maybe you completely switch, but we are definitely seeing a smaller group of people, but I think as people are trying more NAs, that will become a more popular option as well.
Yeah.
Those are sort of the folks that are doing this. And the interesting thing is, I feel like craft beer missed the mark on marketing to women. There's a great book written on that by Ginger Johnson called How to Market Beer to Women. And
just get straight to the point.
And I see NA beer as reclaiming that. I really do. I think it's people pick up on the fact that it's nutritious, that there's no added sugars, as long as there's not chemical pasteurization happening. We pasteurize all of our beer at Go Brewing. So, you really couldn't drink a healthier beverage. The Pilsner only has 45 calories and 1 gram of sugar and is technically gluten-free. It's under 5 ppm of gluten.
Well, that's another good point. Yeah, when you have, certain dietary,
especially for women, they're looking
restrictions
for
they're trying to.
Yeah, which is why cider and wine were so popular with women. But now NA beer, which is very accessible, very affordable. NA wines are very expensive to make. So I think we're bringing more women into the category now as an NA that want different varieties of flavors. They like the variety packs, they're helping encourage and influence those consumer purchasing decisions. So we see that number shifting. It was usually about a 70-30 split men to women. And I see more than 50 in the businesses that I've worked in terms of who, like, men and women drinking these products, which is very interesting and very, very cool. And anybody listening to that should be very excited, because that is a really, really great opportunity. So
tons of opportunity there.
Yeah, so that's kind of an overview of the category. In terms of growth, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, but if you look at craft beer, like, we're about $1 billion category right now, let's say, for all AF and NA. But let's look at just beer alone is expected non-alcoholic and alcohol-free beers. It's projected to be a $40 billion category by 2032.
Wow.
So that's really, really in the United States. That's insane. Wow. That's double the size of craft.
Yeah.
I think there's people out there that are going to question that number and try to poke holes in it.
$40 billion.
I'm like, double the size.
Well, let's see what happens.
It might. Yeah, it definitely can, because there's more occasions to drink NA beer. And I think we have an argument for that as well. So it's going to be a really cool ride. I'm thrilled to be part of a team that every day we are just going. It's like my hair is blown back every day by the growth here. I haven't seen it since Boston Beer, let's call it 2010 to 2014, where we were even running into pressures on inventory. We have a great team at Go. We've learned from the industry of how to set up our business so that we can grow into it very rapidly. And the quality of the product and the brand and the team is so outstanding that the more companies can assimilate to building something like that, I think the more legitimacy and the faster we can hit these projections.
Yeah, that is an incredible wealth of information, and it's just so valuable for everybody to hear that, just
Thanks.
How you've laid it out. So thank you for sharing that. But I think I'm going to propose maybe there's like 0.5% of all the the person who is looking at something on the shelf and is just so attracted to branding. And maybe it's because I come from a marketing background, so I kind of live more in that space. But seeing a packaging and saying, I want to try that. And so I want to show some of the Go Brewing branding because I have some here. Thank you for sharing some. So
Yes.
yeah, so we got the Go Brewing box. So this was the variety pack. So I have a bunch of the cans. And so you were telling me earlier that some of you did some redesign of some of them, right? But I'm going to show. So this one here, the double IPA. I love the graffiti style of that can here. So this can you said got redesigned, right?
Yes, that one. I don't have a copy of that new one, but I do have I do have the other two. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our
beautiful.
tropical IPA. Yeah, we use peach and mango in that one. That's a delicious beer. Oh, there's a new
fruit IPA.
Yeah, that's one of the new designs. That's called Jab Jab. That's a great one.
Yeah. I love the kind of the rawness to it, but also it's also kind of like calming too. Obviously, you have like sort of like the space vibe going on.
Yeah, this is the new can for that. So that's how we've updated it, just so that everybody can get the comparison of Leah holding version 1 and me holding version 2, which is really cool.
Yeah. And let's see, we got I love sours. We got the sour here.
I'm thinking we might do that one today. So here's the new sour can.
Oh, nice. Oh,
so
very cool.
The real call out on the fruit. We use real blueberries and strawberries in this beer.
I think we should do that one. And then the last can here, American wheat.
Yes. I don't have a can of that one in front of me, but it's a great one as well.
Yeah. So.
And I will send you images of the new packaging, outer packaging, so you can share that with.
Yes,
I think that is a really cool thing to share with people. Don't be afraid to update your brand and package, like as you learn. You know, I think that's something really valuable that I've seen. I did that at Aficionado. Go Brewing has done that. You know, package changes are important because again, you need to know what grabs people's attention.
Right. That's a great point, and then we'll get to pouring the beer, but. You know, I think a lot of brands, obviously there's a huge cost in changing packaging, right? But there's also a huge potential loss of opportunity if you're not adapting to what your customers want, right?
Yes.
So I like your point of, you know, it's worth the risk to do it when you know it's going to have a positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can oftentimes close the bigger deals that you want by leaning into package changes around doubling your growth by getting in somewhere you've wanted to go, you know, just by having some renderings and saying, here's what we've heard works, you know, we want to leverage that. I think I've seen that be really successful.
Excellent. I have to say, I love the black top.
Yeah,
some of the cans have. Yeah, it's really slick. So
yeah, cool. Thank you. So
okay. Let's do it.
Okay. The best sound ever.
Yeah.
And we've got some nice glasses here to kind of. Yeah. I think the color of this beer is just so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a very, very interesting and cool beer. This is a sour beer. And these types of beers really kind of date back to where prior to when people would use hops to make beer bitter. They would kind of let them ferment a little bit in like straw or just naturally from the yeast that was in the air, and then they would become very tart, almost like a kombucha. Like you're just working with the natural, you know, you would pitch a yeast, but then you would also be they would just be naturally letting the beer sour over a couple days and just get kind of funky. And so these were very popular in Europe as unlike farmhouse type beers. And then they would infuse like whatever herbs or fruit or whatever was fresh and growing there on top of it. That would make it more palatable and make it really refreshing and something that you could drink with. Again, water wasn't reliable. But now in modern brewing, we can really control that sour character. So when we taste a beer like a professional, we just kind of have a look at it. It's really beautiful. It has a nice little ring of foam on the top. And then we check out the aroma. Love to know what you think about that.
Smells lovely. It is a really like very pleasant fruit smell without it being like overly fruity or anything like that.
Yeah, like strawberry jam a little bit.
Yeah.
Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Yes. Yeah, we missed that part. Cheers.
It smelled so good. We couldn't help it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really lovely? Pleasant. It's so fresh. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I love this beer so much because I really feel like if you're already a beer drinker and you've had great sours, this is one of the greatest sour beers ever made. But I also give it to people I gave it to a woman 2 days ago. She's like, actually, I'm so sorry. I don't like beer. I probably won't like that. I go, I'll tell you what, we'll dump it if you don't like it. Don't worry. And we opened it, and she proceeds to start drinking the whole thing in front of me. And she goes, I'm not even joking. I really love this. It's so good. And I'm like,
that's awesome. A convert.
yeah, just so cool. Just that, hey, this is another art tool you have now when you want to be, out with your friends and be social with a really beautiful beer. But I also drink this beer at like 10 in the morning when I'm at my desk. Like right now I have I don't know about you, but I have a giant water, a coffee.
Yes.
And then
I'm not going to lie. I got to show you just because you said it. I have both. I have a seltzer and I have a coffee. So,
well, there you go. So, I just think that is the reality. We come prepared because we have our working beverages in water and coffee are also very important in our culture, but beer sits right up there. And so by 10 o'clock,
wow, this is nice.
I grab a cold New School sour out of my bag. And then when I crack it and I smell that fruit, I'm like, yeah, this is replacing that next drink I would go for. I usually would have probably around 10 or 11 grab like a diet soda or an energy drink or an Olipop as those started to come out, kombucha, things like that. But this is so much more approachable, affordable, travels well, stable, all those things, so this is just a favorite of mine to take around.
I love that it's not overly sweet. Like sometimes sour, like I think sometimes some brands can kind of overcompensate the sour with too much sweet. So I like how just clean this tastes and just very pleasant.
no added sugars or anything in these beers, just kind of the natural way we would want them to present. But the biggest, most important thing is we control the amount of alcohol in there, and they're all below 0.5%.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. I can't wait to try the others, but I'm going to continue enjoying this one for this morning.
Great. Yes, please do. Cool.
Yeah. Well, okay. So my last question for you today is something I ask all of our guests, and you've already shared such a wealth of information, but what do you think has been your recipe to revenue you can either go from the perspective of your whole career or in your new business, your new venture?
Yeah. My recipe to revenue, two things. On a personal note, faith. I think whatever it means for folks, you have to figure that out. And once you do, your work has a lot more meaning and purpose. And that has been an incredible discovery for me in life. And it was a recent discovery. And so I now not only have a new appreciation for all of the amazing things I've been able to experience, but I do my best to never waste a moment of time.
Yeah.
Because that is a currency that is so important. And we live in a world that it's very tempting to give up your time to things that do not serve you and do not serve others. So it's just important to be conscious of that. So having faith for me personally, but career-wise, as an extension of that, I would say building genuine connections with people. Then you can call on people because you have got something with them that's real, and you don't just need something from them, but they value you, you value them. And that takes time to build that. That doesn't happen overnight. I think we, especially as a young person in sales, really felt like I had to go out and get everyone's card and know everyone and be everyone's friend and, trip over myself to like serve the smallest need. And I think what I've learned now is as time became more limited and as my discoveries around how I wanted my life to be shaped, changed, being adaptable, I was able to be more adaptable and resilient because I had genuine connections with people that allowed those things to transpire. I could call and say, hey, I'm thinking about making a change. What do you think? And I don't think I've ever had to just apply to jobs. I think almost every job I've ever had in my career has been a referral.
I mean, that's a huge testament to you as a person and the relationships that you've developed. I mean, it's probably the best testament. So
yeah, definitely.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's there for everybody. I mean, of course, you still have to apply for jobs, but try to find someone there that knows someone and have a genuine connection with them and listen to them. And that would be probably the hardest lesson that I'm still learning every day, but one that I'd say from advice to entrepreneurs is sometimes it can be very hard to listen because when you develop something or, you have an idea for something, it hurts when you've already built it and then learn that you made a mistake that you could have fixed way back. And it's easy to just push that aside, but take those as learning opportunities. You don't have to implement everything, but that also helps you build more genuine connections because people that speak the truth to you in love because they care about you and they want to see your business succeed are the most valuable people that you have, just as valuable as the people that are just there to speak life into you and they're just there to encourage you. I think you really need that balance of both, and then continuously learning. And there's different facets of that for every individual. And for me, that's, learning about faith and how to increase my faith and spending time having those internal conversations, and giving that time to be at peace and get rest. And then when
especially in our day and age, you need time to find time to have that reflection.
You have to reflect, you have to get rest, and then you can really take and learn, and then you can apply that by cultivating those partnerships that we talked about. So I am so grateful for all of your questions, and I hope that I was helpful to everyone that listens to
tremendously. Thank you so much, Meagen. It's been such a fun episode, and huge thank you to you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me today on Recipe to Revenue. We're going to have links to all the different websites and images that we'll share both on our blog at sinuatemedia.com and in our description on YouTube. So if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe, rate, leave us a review. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and your favorite podcasting platforms. Don't forget to share this episode with your fellow food and beverage peers who could use a little extra inspiration. So thanks again for tuning in to the next time on Recipe to Revenue. Thank you, Meagen, so much. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.